Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihil kareem. The next thing we're discussing is regarding ruwat. So we've done the names before, isn't it? The previous lesson, the names, whether they're similar names or different names, or how to differentiate one letter different, two letter difference. Now some important information regarding them. We have here at-tabaqat wa maratib al-jarh wa al-ta'dil. So tabaqa is like the, so let's go here. Min al-muhim. Now he's saying here, some important points to note is what? Ma'rifatu tabaqat al-ruwat. What is it? Ma'rifatu tabaqat al-ruwat is understanding the tabaqat of the ruwat. Okay? Now what does tabaqat mean? It's different tabaqat. So what happens here is that because tabaqa. So for example, you know who the sahaba are. You know who the tabi'een are. You know who what? The tabu tabi'een are. So you know the different tabaqat. Are you following? This is a very basic tabaqat. Inshallah, what we'll do, inshallah, at the end if I get time, or we'll do sometime later on, Ibn Hajar rahmatullahi alayhi, what he's done is, obviously Ibn Hajar came 500, 600, so he's a bit later. But what he's done, he's divided the rawi, the ruwat, from the time of Sahaba all the way to the time of 240, 250. And he's made 10 tabaqat. But again, this is very arbitrary. So what he's saying, for example, instead of saying Sahaba, Tabi'un, Tabu Tabi'un, Atba'u Tabi'in, you have tabaqat number 1, and that would mean Sahaba. And he split the Sahaba into, I think, 3 categories. You have Kibar, Awsat, and then you have the Sigar. Because of the Kibaru Tabi'een is like, for example, we had what? Like people who were born in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, but they never met the Prophet ﷺ, or they were like 4 or 5 years old when the Prophet passed away, and they were in another city. Now you have some Tabi'een, like Imam Malik, who was born in like 70, very young, seen one Sahabi. It's a big difference, isn't it? You get it? So he's divided, okay, the different tabi'in. So even though they're all tabi'in, then from the tabu tabi'in, he's got different levels. So altogether, he's got 10 tabaqat. So inshallah, if you get a chance, look into that. Or if you get a chance, we'll do it inshallah. But you need to know tabaqa. So if you know, there's Abdullah. So which tabaqa is he from? Another example is if you know, for example, he's a tabi'in. So for example, is he sigaru tabi'in or kibaru tabi'in? Because it's a kibaru tabi'in will narrate from whom normally? Sahaba. And a sigar will probably narrate mainly from whom? Huh? The Kibaru Tabi'in. They will probably met very few Sahaba, even if they were met few Sahaba, but they still Sahaba Tabi'in, because they met the Sahaba, but they riwayat from the Kibaru Tabi'in, also Tabi'in. They will have very few riwayat from the Sahaba. Do you understand? So if you know the tabaqa, then it helps you understand, is it inqita, is not inqita. Are you following? Yes? So that's why it's important to know the tabaqat. So a very simple baby level tabaqa is Sahaba, Tabi'in, Tabu Tabi'in. But a more complex level is like if you go through Ibn Hajar rahmatullahi alayhi, then he got tabaqat, and he's mentioned 10 of them. We'll do that later on inshallah. But that's also very important to remember. And next thing you need to know about the ruwat is the mawalid. What's mawalid? Why celebrate birthdays? Astaghfirullah. Mawalid, to know their day of birth. Why? Why? If you know when they were born, then you know who they met, who they didn't meet. You know when they, you know which tabaqah they are in. So you need to know. What also you need to know? وَوَفِيَّاتِهِمْ when they passed away. So you can attend the janazah. Yes? Celebrate. Oh, no. So when they die, you know, okay, did he meet him? Did he not meet him? Which tabaqat they are in. وَبُلْدَانِهِمْ where they live. So you know so you know what? Which shuyukh they met. Where they would have what? Where they would have interacted with people. Was he far away? Get what I'm saying? So they met in the same era, but one lives in Khurasan, one lives in Misr. So did they meet? You get what I'm saying? So all these things you have to look at. Okay? Now, another thing you have to remember about them is ahwalihim. Meaning what? Ta'deelan wa jarhan. Are they adil? Are they thiqa? Not thiqa? Are they majruh? Not majruh? Wa jahalatan. Do we know them? Do we not know them? Are you following? Now, this is a chart I made up. We did it in the hadith course. But it's a quick recap. Now, before we go into jarh and ta'deel and all the words jarh and ta'deel, you have to remember when we were discussing ruwat, what did we say? There are 2 characteristics of rawis that we need to know. One is what? The integrity, meaning are they people who would lie? Yes or no? And is their deen and their religion such that we can trust their deen and religion? That they have enough fear of Allah that it will stop them from fabricating things or they don't take deen to be a joke. They don't take things lightly. They have credibility. And the second thing is, even though they're very pious or very righteous or very credible, but the memory, understanding. So there are two aspects of a rawi. One is called the dhabt, yes, the ability to preserve, to listen, understand, preserve and transmit correctly. And the other is adala. Yes, so you have dhabt and adl, or dhabt and adala. Adala means the integrity. Okay, so these are two things. And logically, even in court, in judge, in testimony, he says, this person, is he going to lie and does he have a good preservation? So is he going to make up stuff? Or and is he going to narrate it properly? Is he understand what he's being said? Somebody can be very, very pious, but they're not very clever. Or they mix up stuff, they're very old, they have a mental illness. Yes, somebody's very, very sharp, but what? He's very evil. He lies, spreads rumors. You follow me? You have these things. So we have two aspects. Now, if a person, so you have a base level adala. This is adala, you have adala here. You have a base level adala. This is adala line. If you fall below the adala, then the ruwa, they don't really care about zabt. You get what I'm saying? If, for example, you go to court and you're testing the witnesses, and if you can prove this witness is lies or has forged evidence, does the judge and the jury care whether he's got a very good memory? He's very good in preservation. He's got whole tapes full of. He said, well, this guy he's forged in testimony for, so therefore everything's out of to throw everything out. So similarly in ruwat, if they have a baseline, they don't meet the baseline of adala. Either they lie or they're accused of lying or they're in fisq, the transgression, they take deen lightly, the behavior is such that you can't trust that person, you throw him out. So we don't even mention, so basically each rawi should have two qualities. You should have two scales. You know, like you have like when you have those games, you have like qualities. So for example, you've got a football game, you have passing and shooting, tackling, or if you're a cricket game, like how much power, defense, attack. You get what I'm saying? So or you have like a normal fighting, you have attack and defense, innit? You have two scores. So every rawi needs to have two scores. What's the two scores? The dhabt score and the adala score. Are you following? Yes? Now you have dhabt and adala. But sometimes they don't mention both scores. So for example, when you say fasiq, muttaham bil, so let's say for example, let's say we have a scale of 1, 2, 3, 4. In adala, have a scale of 1 to 4. Or is that 1 to 5? Now if he says your adala, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and we just say here 4 and 5, yes? So let's erase all this here, right? Let's erase all of this. Okay, so we have here scores 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So if you get 2, if you score 1 in your adala, so we don't care what your dhabt is. It doesn't matter what your dhabt is, you fail. If you score 2 in your adala, we don't care what your dhabt is. And if you score 3 in your adala, you're still not good enough. And if you score 4 or 5, we don't care about 4 and 5, they're both the same. Because if you're really pious, so if you reach a base level, he doesn't lie. If he's more pious, I mean, he wouldn't lie less. You get what I'm saying? He's honest. So you're honest, that's it. Honesty is not like, if you're an honest person, that means you don't lie. Now, if you perform tahajjud, spend the whole night crying, or you perform your 5 farais, it won't affect your honesty. You're honest. That's it. Done. You get what I'm saying? You can't be more honest. Honesty is like, he doesn't lie. That's it. Done. Performing 20 hajj doesn't make you like more honest. You get what I'm trying to say? So once you reach level 4 of adala, that's it. Fine. So each rawi should have 2 scores. But what they do is, if you say for example he's kadhib, then the narrators, the books of al-Jarh al-Ta'dil wouldn't say, oh, kadhib thiqatun. Because we don't care about thiqa anyway, isn't it? It's like, we don't care what your thing is. You following? You get what I'm trying to say? You understand what I'm saying? So in books of Jarh al-Ta'dil, books of Asma al-Rijal, you wouldn't find both scores everywhere. The other score is embedded inside. Are you following me? So if you are level 1, 2, and 3, adal, say fasiq, mubtadi', that's it, done. We don't want him anymore. We don't care what his dhabt is. When you mention the dhabt, that means automatically we've assumed that what? When you mention the dhabt, if you say for example, he's thiqatun, is he kadhib? So thiqa means what? He's got a good memory, doesn't mean he's honest. But these words, so once you get to this level, then the books of Asma al-Rijal don't mention the adala anymore. You follow what I'm trying to say? They just mention here, he's thiqa. So if he's thiqatun, if he's adlun, thiqatun. If you have like multiple, what happens now? That means it's automatically got the base score. You got what I'm trying to say? Do you understand what I'm saying? It's like, for example, if you got mufti. So if he's a mufti, then automatically he's going to be an alim. So you don't need to mention alim and mufti. You get what I'm trying to say? So like these words, imamun, adlun, thiqatun, adlun, thiqa, these will automatically embody what? That he's got adala. He's got adala. He's not impious. He's not going to lie. And you following? You get what I'm trying to say? So literally, theoretically, you should have two words for every rawi to analyze his zabt and analyze his adala. But because when you reach adala, then if you're on this level, you mention this and that's it. You throw it out the window. You don't need a second score. You following? If you get muttaham bil kadhib, he's like accused of lying, or he lies in normal daily activities. We don't care how thiqa he is, he lies. So then you don't mind. Once you mention any of these qualities, this is important. The top part, meaning the zabt, is irrelevant. You following? Now in zabt, you have different types of zabt. You have you have like all of these are what? The elite. These are like what? Like proper elite. They're like adlun thiqa. Like you use adlun or thiqatun. Or you use double word, like double, adlun, thiqatun, like emphasized. Or now the elite, Imam Bukhari, Shu'bah, Yahya Ali al-Madini, the great Imam Shafi'i, Imam Malik, like the great Imam of Hadith. Like, so you have Imamun, Adlun, or the elite, but the middle elite, and in the top, Adlun. Then you have those who are Adlun wa khafif al-dhabt. Yes? So in here, I've added the word here, Adlun. So all of these are Adlun. But the books of would I mention that? Because what happens is all of these are adl, yes? You following? But when you have imamun, automatically what does that include? Adlun. When you have thiqatun, what does that include automatically? Adlun. When you have thiqatun, automatically includes what? Adlun. So in the books of Asma' al-Rijal, when you have the bottom name, this top name will not be included. They wouldn't give a score for the adala because automatically say, well, we'll only call him an imam or a thiqa when he's what? Got adala. Do you understand? You following? And when you say fasik thiqatun, we don't care about the second score is not mentioned at all because, yes? So now in here you have different levels. You have imam, things like that, like elite. Then you have double thiqa or single thiqa. Then you have khafif al-dhabt. Okay, slightly less. So up till here, we say, well, these are acceptable. This is probably siha, and these are the hasan. And then you have khafif al-da'f, slightly weak. And then you have shadid al-da'f. So he's not accepted as well, because he's very weak. Many mistakes, or manakir, or whatever. And this one, if you look at this one now here, we can say now here, that these are the ruwat of what? Siha. Again, this is a rule of thumb. It's not like exact. Just giving like an idea. It's a bit more complex than this. This you could say, for example, these are the Hisan or the Hasan. These can become what? This is also kind of almost overlapping, or this can become Hasan li ghayrihi. If you have a mutaba'ah can do what? Make it Hasan li ghayrihi. And now these, sometimes you can have mutaba'at to make it Hasan li ghayrihi. Sometimes they will always be da'if, depending on it. You understand how a simple, very oversimplified view. Again, this is basically beginner level. But do you understand here how it works? Everybody following? Okay. So carrying on from here, we now have maratibul jarh wa ta'dil. So what are the levels of jarh? So now the bottom, the red one, isn't it? So he's saying here, wa aswa'uha al-wasfu bi af'al. The worst form of jarh, meaning the worst form of saying somebody is what? Like majruh. You say af'al. If it's tafdeel. Akdhabin nas. Dajjal. Like, Dajjal, he lies. Wadda'. What's wadda' mean? He fabricates hadith left, right and center. Kadhab. Yes? Wa ashaluha layyin. It's layyin. Layyin sayyi'ul hifzi wa fihi maqal. If you look at these things here, in these what's being attacked? Which adala the zabt? Adala. In here we're saying adala. So the adala is not good, so therefore we don't even care if it's got zabt or not. And here, layyin, sayyi'ul hifz, fihi maqal. What's being questioned? The zabt. The zabt is being questioned in here. So that means if it's layyin, we means what? We're only mentioning his quality of the issue of his zabt, because adala is already okay. So in these words, what would we assume regarding the adala? It's fine. We said the adala is past. That's why we're only mentioning the zabt. But he's got a weak zabt. He's either Like, okay, is it layyin and sayyul hifzi is a bit different. Like, again, remember, they didn't have like a categorization, grade A, grade B, grade C, grade D. They use these words. Now, different muhaddis use different words differently. And even like, how can you categorize my memory on a scale, like exact with precision? It's an opinion, isn't it? So you get like overlapping. Someone say layyin, some say la ba'sa bihi, different words to trying to show that he's in this middle level. Are you following? Then maratib al-ta'dil, that what is the ta'dil of him. وَأَرْفَعُهَا الْوَصْفُ بِأَفْعَلٍ. When you describe him as أفعل, أوثق الناس, أعلم الناس, إمام, ثم ما تأكد بصفة أو صفتين، ثقة حافظ إمام عدل إمام أمير المؤمنين في الحديث. Things like that, okay, this is the elite. Okay. وأدناها ما أشعر بالقرب من أسهل ترجي. And then the lowest level is that which shows that he's in the lowest level of tarjih, like shaykhun, yurwa anhu, yuktabu hadithuhu, salih, things like that. Okay. Now again, as I said to you before, people have written books on jarh and ta'dil and the words of jarh and ta'dil. And you have to remember, as I said before, when Imam Bukhari, Imam Ali al-Madini, Imam Muslim, they didn't get together and make a conference and we say, okay, this is now the codification, this many hadith wrong, you call him this. You gotta say it was naturally what they thought were the best words to use. Some imam, you have to also remember, some imam are very, very harsh. Who's very harsh? One of the harshest in jarh and ta'dil? Shu'bah ibn Hajjaj. He was very, very harsh in that. Who's very soft and very, not soft, but very moderate in their words? Imam al-Bukhari rahmatullah alayhi, he's very moderate. So if Shu'bah is very harsh to somebody, you have to look at it a bit more, that Shu'bah is a bit harsh. So maybe you get it. So a harsh word would not be not necessarily that harsh. Imam Bukhari using a soft word would not necessarily mean, okay, it's okay. Maybe Imam Bukhari doesn't use harsh words anyways. He doesn't use dajjal for anybody. He will say, la yuktabu hadith. He will say, for example, you get what I'm saying? So you have to understand who is saying this, because it's not one uniform code. You get what I'm saying? Yes? Okay, let's stop here, inshallah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Nahmaduhu wa nasalli ala rasulihil kareem. So continuing from yesterday, now we mentioned yesterday regarding the maratib al-jarh wa ta'dil. You have different levels of jarh, different levels of ta'dil. You have shaykh and akthab nas and awthaq nas and imam. Now we're saying here, وَتُقْبَلُ التَّزْكِيَةُ مِنْ عَارِفٍ بِأَسْبَابِهَا وَلَوْ مِنْ وَاحِدٍ عَلَى الْأَصَحِ. Again, he's trying to give us some principles here. So yuzakki means what? To purify. So tazkiyah basically means what? Purifying, or purifying a narrator, meaning claiming that he's okay. Basically saying he's got zabt and he's got adala. Now who can do zabt and adala? Anytime they can hurry? He's saying here, وَتُقْبَلُ التَّزْكِيَةُ مِنْ عَارِفٍ بِأَسْبَابِهَا. It's like, for example, like, if he's a good doctor, what do I know about doctor, about medicine? I think he's a good doctor because he smiles at me. But is he a good doctor? I want to know, would I? So you have to have a doctor to tell you, well, he's a good doctor or not. So similarly, when we have so tazkiyah, meaning either saying the Rabi's got zabt and adala or not, or what level it is accepted min arifin, from somebody who knows its asbab. So somebody who is aware of the asbab of jarh and ta'dil. They know, okay, yes, this is a reason that we can reject. For example, they understand what is fisq, what is bid'ah, what type of memory is needed, when did they make mistakes or not. So it has to be an alim, or somebody who is aware of this science, to then be able to do what? For them to then be able to do jarh. So once a person out of him, so basically, if like any time they can heard the jarh, I say, well, we don't know. If Shu'bah ibn Hajjaj, Imam Bukhari, Imam Nasa'i, they do what? Jarh and ta'dil. Then we say, okay, they will accept the jarh and ta'dil. Because anybody say anything about anybody, innit? That is not counted. When the ulama and the ahlul fan, they do jarh. I say, he's got this weakness or this defect. Or they do ta'dil, say, no, he's an imam, he's solid, he's got good memory. Well, those people, and then he's saying, وَلَوْ مِنْ وَاحِدٍ. Now, is one person jarh and ta'dil sufficient? He's saying, al-asah, yes. People will fear, it's not like unanimous. Some say, well, one person is not enough. What if he misunderstood some mistake? Some say you have to have more than one. If you've got a few people who can do jarh and ta'dil, then it'll be accepted. Are you following me? Yes? You understand? Again, so the same we have Mustalah Hadith, where we learn Mudraj and Maqlub and Mustarib. There's people have actually written separate books regarding jarh and ta'dil. The words of jarh. It's actually a book they stick by Abdul Majid al-Ghawri. It's called Mustalahat Ahl al-Jarh wa Ta'dil, or Mustalahat al-Jarh wa Ta'dil, something like that. So in there, he's mentioned like different words, what do they mean, what the implication of these words, and because Jarh and Ta'dil is also different. And I said to you, if it was a unified science, it developed naturally. So each scholar has different words, and different words mean different things. Later we have different words, thiqatun, but and so later we try to codify it. But the earlier scholars were using natural word, normal words that would mean something. So for example, you say yuktabu hadithuhu, to one scholar would mean that's like slightly weak. Another scholar mean that's okay, that's fine. You can write some hadith, is good. It might mean that's sahih and thiqa. So you have to understand so you have to know who the Ahlul Jarh wa Ta'dil, what words they use, what word these imply. Are the words shared between the scholars the same meaning, or do different people have different implications? Do you understand? Okay. والجرح مقدم على التعديل إن صدر مبينا إن صدر مبينا من عارف بأسبابه. Now here is sitting another masala. What if you have a situation where scholars differ? Again, these are just rules of thumb. You can't apply it like blanket across this, because even you have, when you then start doing hadith, when you start looking at the books, Asma Rijal and the Ruwat, you find that this is not. So it's saying here, وَالْجَرْحُ مُقَدَّمٌ عَلَى التَّعْدِيلِ. A jarh is going to be given. So if you have two, one scholar is saying what? Not thiqah, or not thing, and other saying what he is. You following? So if you've got a contradiction, what happens to the contradiction? What? He's saying, what will you give preference to? Jarh or ta'dil? He's saying that you give jarh to ta'dil, to jarh. That someone says weak, someone says strong, we go to the weak one, just to be safe. That's his opinion. It's not always like this. We've seen that as well in Abu Dawud. There are many different variations, and some saying he's weak, some say he's strong. There's narration that in Bukhari is saying Bukhari narrates from him, other people say no, he's weak. So it's not just simple as this, but he's kind of given, and it makes sense basically, a general rule of thumb. If you're not sure, then on the safe side, you will say, well, his riwayah has a bit of question mark. But it's not always. Yes? In sadara, if that jarh was sadara, if that jarh occurs mubayyanan, not even mubayyanan. Yes? And he can't say, oh, he's weak. So why is he weak? Tell me. Prove it to me. So for example, you have a jarh mubham. You just say, okay, well, he's weak. Okay, why? Oh, he's weak. You don't have any evidence. Why? You don't know why. He's got weak memory. Tell us why. So the later books, for example, Tahdhib of Ibn Hajar, etc., they only have the summary. The early books will tell us stories why they said this. That we went here, we answered this question, and then here this happened. Do you understand? So then you have evidences of why they're saying he's weak. He does waham. He makes mistakes. How do you know? They give you stories that he made. In this scenario, he done this, he done this. So if it's mubayyan, so if you got jarh and ta'dil, and it's mubayyan the jarh, and they're saying why, then, and again, is mubayyan is explained from somebody who knows asbabul jarh. Logically, and as a rule of thumb, we can understand, or a general rule, we can say, well, we'll take a jarh because why? It's possible that he knew what the other guy didn't know. Because ta'dil is basically, you know the good about him, and nothing bad came about. And that's but jarh is like one-off by innocence, regarding aqeedah, regarding bid'ah, regarding mistakes, regarding, you get what I'm saying? So let's say, for example, you spend 10 years with me, and you do ta'dil of me. Yes? And then somebody else comes in afterwards or before, and he knows something which you don't know. That maybe I didn't really, it's not my narration, I just photocopied somebody's books and plagiarized it. I never really heard it. He knows that one thing. So you didn't know that one. Remember, the jarh is only one issue sometimes, isn't it? So that person may know of one issue, but as long as mubayyan is clear. That's a rule of thumb. It's not always the case. Do you understand? So 2-1 is, who do you accept it from? And if you have a difference of opinion, what happens then? And the third scenario is?
Why would you not take the stronger one?
Huh?
Why would you not take the stronger one?
What means stronger one? Well, if you're saying somebody is weak and he says somebody is strong, who do you take? You have to look at each case by case. You can't just make a blanket. But he's saying as a rule, if both of them are like, let's say, you're an imam of jarh and ta'dil, he's an imam of jarh and ta'dil, both the same quality, he's saying adala, you're saying jarh, and you explain why there's a jarh. What would make sense? Take your jarh. But let's say, for example, you're not imam, you're very weak, like you're low level in jarh and ta'dil, he's an imam in jarh and ta'dil, and you're doing jarh, he's doing ta'dil, who do you take then? Him. It's not just like always. You have to look at who's saying it, are they both the same level, the variations. Do you understand? Yeah? The third scenario, فَإِنْ خَلَاءَ عَنِ التَّعْدِيلِ قُبِلَ الْجَرْحُ مُجْمَلًا عَلَى الْمُخْتَارِ. So in here is who? Now in here is verses, two people the same. So one is saying jarh, one is saying ta'dil. He's given another scenario. He's saying, what if you have jarah, but no ta'dil. So nobody's done adala of him. Nobody's saying that he's thiqa and adil. And one person is saying he's got jarah, but he never mentioned a reason. In here, if you got ta'dil and you got jarh, الجرح المفصل. So you got ta'dil and al-jarh al-mufassal. Jarah with tafsil. Why are we doing jarah on him? What's Ibn Hajar rahimahullah saying? What would you take? Jarh al-mufassal. So basically, if you got ta'dil versus jarh mubham, what do you think is going to be ruling there? Ta'dil. Again, rule of thumb. And the third scenario is we got what? You got jarh mubham. You got jarh mubham, meaning ambiguous, he's just majrooh. Versus nothing. There's nothing else about him. No more the ta'dil of him. Then would you accept the jarh mubham? He's saying yeah. So فَإِنْ خَلَا عَنِ التَّعْدِيل, nobody's done his ta'dil. That he's got adala. Adala means adala and zabt. Then the jarh mubham or mujmal can be taken. Because there's no evidence to prove that he's got adala. And the guy who's doing jarh on him, even though he's not got the details, but he's doing jarh. So if he was good enough, then you would have what? You would have what? More detail. Are you following me? Does this make sense? Yeah? So these are some of the rulings that we have done regarding jarh and ta'dil. Again, jarh and ta'dil it's not just to pick up a book and you say, okay, he's got jarh, because you find so many different things. You find Imam Bukhari in it, referring to Ali al-Madini. You find Shu'bah saying sometimes Shu'bah saying is weak, sometimes Shu'bah saying is strong. Other guys disagree with him. You have to look at a lot of information. Yes, just taking one rawi would take you days and days to figure out. Obviously, a bit easy with computer and all that, but still to get all of the information, and then sometimes we don't know what to do because if Bukhari is saying one thing, Shu'bah is saying one thing. What do we do? You get what I'm saying? How would we decide? You get what I'm saying? So it's a lot more detail. This is rules of thumb to help us understand the manhaj, the philosophy, and the approach of the muhaddithun. سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك ونشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت ونستغفرك ونتوب إليك.